The sea around Blackglass Harbor never made a sound. That was always the first thing people noticed when they arrived. The complete unnerving absence of noise. Waves would rise and fall against the docks without a whisper, as if the water itself was afraid of being heard. The gulls flew in silence, the wind blew without a howl. It was a silence so deep, it felt like a weight on your soul. Captain Nina Vale had sailed through naval blockades, survived mutinies, and navigated storms that could split a ship clean in two. But the oppressive quiet of this place unsettled her more than the roar of cannon fire ever had. Standing at the rail beside her was Zog, her first mate and oldest friend. His once bright emerald scales were now a dull ash green, faded by time and trials. The old Dragonkin no longer told his bawdy jokes or sang his sea shanties. He just watched the shore with an intensity that chilled Nina to the bone. "They're watching us," Zog murmured, his voice a low rumble. Nina didn't need to ask who they were. Everyone knew who ruled this silent port. Blackglass Harbor belonged to Elias Crow, a man who, according to rumor, had drowned at sea years ago, only to return. He wasn't a king or a governor. He commanded no soldiers and flew no flag, yet his control was absolute. Ships docked here not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. And when they left, they were always lighter, quieter, and fundamentally changed. Crow's currency wasn't gold or jewels. He collected secrets. Not the kind you whisper in confession, those were too easy, too rehearsed. Crow took the real things, the heavy things. He harvested memories, regrets, the truths people bury so deep they convinced themselves they'd forgotten. In exchange for this psychic toll, he offers safe passage, protection from the world's navies, and the harbor's crushing silence. Those who dared to resist his price never screamed. They just stopped speaking. Their voices would vanish, leaving them as mute as the waves. Nina hadn't come here by choice. She owed Crow a debt. Years ago, while smuggling refugees from a war-torn coast, her ship was cornered in these very waters. He hadn't asked for payment then, only a promise. He'd looked her in the eye and said, "When I call, you come." His gaze shifted, landing on Zog, who stood like a stone sentinel behind her. "The creature," Crow said, his tone casual, "it remembers things you've long forgotten, doesn't it?" Zog stiffened, a low growl vibrating in his chest. Nina's hand tightened on her blade. "You don't get to touch him." Crow leaned forward, his smile widening into something predatory. "Oh, but I already have." The true horror of Blackglass Harbor wasn't the silence. It was the reason for it. Crow revealed his grand design without a hint of villainous theatrics. He was building something beneath the harbor, a vault, a great machine powered by the memories he'd stolen. He explained how he could distill human experience into pure influence. He could weaponize guilt, turning it into unwavering obedience. He could refine fear into absolute loyalty. With this machine, entire nations would kneel to his will, their leaders acting on compulsions they couldn't comprehend, all orchestrated from his silent throne. "I'm not a monster, Captain," he said, spreading his hands as if explaining a simple business venture. "I'm just efficient. I offer a service." Zog's growl grew louder. "You hollow people out." Crow's pleasant demeanor finally cracked. His voice hardened, becoming as sharp as broken glass. "People hollow themselves out every day with their choices, their lies, their regrets. I just collect what spills out." Then he made his offer. the true reason he has summoned her. He knew Nina's deepest wound, her most persistent nightmare. The night she was forced to choose between a critical mission and saving her own sister from a burning city. Her sister hadn't made it. It was a memory that haunted her sleep and shadowed her waking hours. "Help me finish the vault," Crow offered, his voice dropping to a soft, seductive whisper. "And I will erase it for you. I will take that knife from your mind. No more nightmares, no more guilt. You'll be free." For the first time in years, Nina Vale felt herself waver. A life without that crushing weight? A single night's sleep unbroken by visions of smoke and fire? It was a temptation more powerful than any treasure. But before she could answer, Zog stepped forward, positioning himself between her and Crow. "If he takes that from you," he said, his voice firm and clear, "the pain, the regret, you won't be you anymore. That part of you, the part that hurts, is also the part that makes you fight for others. Don't let him take it." Crow's smile vanished completely, replaced by a sneer of pure contempt. Brave words from a creature that only exists because of stolen magic. "You, of all things, should understand the price of power." Zog didn't flinch. He met Crow's cold gaze, and for the first time since they'd arrived, Nina saw the ancient fire spark in her old friend's eyes. "Then I'll burn it all down," Zog declared, and the silence of Blackglass Harbor broke. The fight wasn't loud with the clang of steel, but with something far more elemental. Zog unleashed a torrent of ancient, internal flame, a pure white fire that didn't just burn matter, it consumed memories. The black glass walls shattered. The stolen voices and screams trapped within them were released, a cacophony of 1,000 lives erupting at once. The harbor, for the first time in a generation, roared. Crow staggered back, clutching his head as his network of control unraveled. The raw, unfiltered emotions of his victims flooded his mind. "You think this makes you a hero?" He shrieked over the din. "You think this fixes anything? Someone else will just take my place. There's always another Crow." Nina advanced on him, her blade finally drawn. She cornered him against the crumbling remains of his desk, the point of her cutlass at his throat. "Maybe," she said, her voice steady amidst the chaos. "But they won't be you, and they won't be here. Not tonight." With a final decisive strike, she didn't hit Crow. She plunged her blade into the machine's glowing core behind him. The entire vault groaned, then collapsed into the churning, screaming sea. Crow's body was never found, lost in the wreckage and the newly awakened waves. Blackglass Harbor was never silent again. The sound of the sea, the gulls, and the life of the port returned, a little messy, a little loud, but real. Days later, back on the open water, with the familiar sound of the ocean whispering against the hull, Zog stood beside her at the rail. He looked at her, his scales seeming a little brighter in the sun. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly, not taking his offer. Nina watched the horizon, feeling the phantom weight of her guilt, the familiar ache of her past. It was still there. It would always be there. "No," she said, a small genuine smile touching her lips. "Pain reminds me who I chose to be." Zog nodded, a deep and ancient understanding in his eyes. Some villains crave power, others lust for gold. Elias Crow wanted something far more insidious. He wanted permission. He wanted people to willingly give up the pieces of themselves that hurt, not realizing they were giving up their humanity too. And that, Nina knew, was exactly why he had to fall. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from worlds beyond our own.